Thank you very much. And I appreciate you all being here as well, because it's actually nice to have a few extra minds to work this evening on how do we create jobs, because it's something that GPEC does every day. For those of you who don't really know what we do, we actually work to build the economy and recruit high-wage jobs to Greater Phoenix. So that means we look at industries that are growing, we contact companies, we talk to them about their expansion plans, and then we really do market, sell, outreach, both internationally and domestically, for companies to bring their jobs and bring their businesses to the Greater Phoenix area. We do this in collaboration with the state. We do this in collaboration with the 18 member communities that make up the Greater Phoenix area. So this evening, and I actually want to thank my colleagues here, really, who all, both in the private sector as well as in the public sector, really did get behind the legislation that Representative Sinema was talking about, because it is one of the most aggressive pieces of public policy that was passed this calendar year by any state in the union. And we did it in a competitive way. You'll hear me probably say that more this evening, because that's what we really believe in at GPEC, and that's how do we make our state competitive? How do we look at what makes the difference in a decision of a business expanding or relocating here to our state? So from a competitive standpoint, this particular piece of legislation actually is revenue neutral and or positive to our state, so that it's not a piece of legislation that's a giveaway. It actually is a pay-to-play, if you will, because if a company's going to bring a job here, we want to make sure that Arizona is getting something back for that. With that being said, the context here this evening is really about jobs, and I think that's a really complex one, because that depends on, are you going to talk about a short-term job? Are you going to talk about a long-term job, a high-wage job? We spend a lot of time thinking about what kind of jobs are we really trying to recruit to our state. And I can tell you, over the past 2 years, we've lost more than 200,000 jobs. You read a report, it might be 275, as high as 275, depending upon which month that you pick over the past 2 years. Regardless, we're last in the nation in job growth. And we've asked the second question is, how did we get here? It's because we had a economy based upon simple economics. Economics of sales tax, economics of construction. So one of the things that I'm hopeful about and I'm encouraged about is that this conversation is different than it's ever been before for Arizona, because we've thought that it's been a knee-jerk reaction, and as soon as the economy bounced back, we get right back into doing what we've done, and that is growing upon growth because we've got great weather. What I want to really impress upon you is that this is our opportunity, and we absolutely must take it to diversify our economy, so that we will not be in this situation 5-7 years from now. We're in unprecedented times, and I'm encouraged that we can actually do it differently. So I would then shift and say, so that's how we got here. What we really want to do is talk over the next hour or so about how do we get out. The issues that are causing a problem to get out today involve capital. It's really hard to get businesses to do expansion. Job training, it's really tough to get job training dollars. That's another competitive issue. And it's also really hard to get the support from a policy perspective to create a business environment where companies want to come and expand. So on that notion, if we're coming forward and really putting some ideas out, I would look for us to send some ideas back to our federal government as well as locally. Is number one, how can we stimulate to free up the market, particularly around small business? I echo my colleagues' comments. When job creation is fundamentally a private sector activity, we've seen the stimulus plan actually support the green and renewable energy, and that's been very beneficial for us to recruit solar companies. So I'm not to say that it is not without federal help, but it is those companies on the private side that we really look to start and to stimulate us back. So how do we keep creating that environment that's going to do that? Secondly, I think there's something with not only to stimulate by opening up and getting maybe small business and look to some of the best practices that we had in the 80s of what we did to stimulate small business growth and activity and their ability to get at capital. But an innovative idea for us to maybe think about is how do we allow banks to deduct the income from loans that they're getting, that they provide to small business? So in a way, how do you stimulate and encourage a bank to give a loan to small business? So almost a little bit of a demand side and a supply side to free up the capital. So that would be one idea. Secondly is to look at public policy again, and the enterprise zone is one of the programs that we'll be looking at this legislative session. This state has an enterprise zone, as most states do, but it is very situated to support small business, businesses that have 100 individuals or less, and minority-owned businesses. Those are very reputable issues for a piece of policy to support. We want to enhance that policy and attach a high-wage sector to that. How do you make it attractive for someone who's going to pay a higher wage to come into the enterprise zone? And then even to perhaps put a third tier on the enterprise zone for the highest level. Somebody's going to put $250 million of capital investment into our region. So how do you look at what we have today and begin to tier that so that once again you get public policy that would support businesses coming in? And then the third thing I would leave with, because I really want to hear my colleagues as well, is how do you I would ask the legislator not to sweep the training dollars. The Jobs Training Fund is actually a self-funded by employers within the state. They pay into a fund, and then that is once in turn used when a new job is created to give a tax credit. And our legislature has swept that fund. So right now it's being replenished as we speak, and I would ask for that to be able to be kept whole this year so that we could use that as a competitive measure. I want to acknowledge too, because I know it seems like some of this is so far off. I was actually in the governor's office this morning with the supplier that we're recruiting that is the 200 jobs that to come to this market as being your supplier. And I do want to acknowledge that the governor's office has been terrific to actually change her schedule to make that happen. And that's not something that's 6, 8, 10 months away. That's a company that will make a decision by mid-January and will be up running in 11 months. So we're thrilled to have you in the Valley, and we're thrilled for your support in this supply chain that we're working on. And I'll tell you, their key issue today was availability of workforce. And how do we look at some of the buildings that are vacant, because we have significant vacant buildings that are here in the market, about a 10-year supply. So some of the vacant buildings definitely need some enhancements to get them ready because they're quite outdated. But it's it's something we're working very hard on right now, and that's a real example that's within our grasp, and another one of those situations of where if you create the positive environment, then we can grow these jobs. And Kirsten, it's really good to look at the industry. This industry was important for us to look at the refundable tax credit,
right,
because many new ventures, that's much more of a cash option. It's a one-for-one exchange. When you've got a new venture, that's why it was important to do that. So really studying the industry that you're trying to support is also beneficial.